Hi, we're gonna build shieldXL from the scratch, from a kit. Uh, got some parts over here, a screen display over here. Just set that aside, we won't need it until later, and there's another video for that. So for the moment, put the switches and the caps and stuff aside. We want to just dump out the parts from here. We've got a pi header, some jacks, some encoders, and little switch spacers, and some hardware. This hardware is not totally necessary, it's just in there if you want to use it. So this for the encoders. Let's just put that aside. Okay. First step on this is you want to do the bottom side stuff, which is the pi header and the jacks. So that's going to be, flip this over. There is a white outline here on the top. Do not put your pi header there. That's a terrible idea. You want to put it on the bottom so the pi attaches there. So I just kind of set that in place, get this maybe propped up on some stuff, maybe an encoder over here. You can get it a little flat. And my sort of first step here is just tack one corner, one of the pins in place with just a tiny bit of solder, enough just to kind of hold it. So that's great. And then double check, like look at it from the side and double check that it's nice and flat and in center of the pins. So you could hold it, say with your fingers on the bottom, look at the top positioning, and get it kind of centered up, and then kind of heat up that tacked position. And sometimes it'll sort of snap into place because it wasn't really flat. So that's pretty good. And then I'm going to do another point here at the bottom, enough just to sort of hold it, and then double check that that's nice and flat. You could do the same thing with this one, give it a good press from the bottom, sort of thumb and forefinger, press it in place. We're going to do that with the switches as well. Just kind of make sure, look at it from the side, make sure the header's kind of flat. That's the main thing. And then we're just going to jam through these header pins and check them again as we go. Could probably fast forward through this bit though. I'll show you a little bit more info here. So in the first pass, I'm just putting some solder on the pin, doing it fairly quickly. I'm going to make a second pass through to sort of reflow all of those and make sure they're nice. And I kind of do one side at a time, and I can kind of just go up and down. I tell people this soldering technique every once in a while. You know, hold the soldering iron kind of sideways-ish to get the pin and the pad heated at the same time. Get a little solder on there, let it flow for a second, and then release it. Depends on your soldering temperature and your solder. And at this point, you may or may not need to add a little solder here just to get those guys to be nice. Sometimes I'm also moving the solder around with the iron just to kind of give a little wiggle, get it to flow in place. You don't want to hold these for 10 seconds, like too long. Like a couple of seconds, let the solder flow, let go of it. And sometimes you can just kind of do a quick hit like this, scoop up any extra solder. See if any look weird. So, how's that look on camera? I don't know. Those all look pretty okay to me. Let's do the other side. Here's where I want to prop up my board a little bit. Looks pretty alright. Okay, headers on. Jacks. Yeah, jacks go from the bottom, not the top. Don't be confused. So bottom of the board is where all the components are. These are going to kind of snug fit in there. Give them a good press, make sure they're in place. We're going to tack those the same way we did with the header. So just pick a spot, any spot. Give it just like a little bit of solder. Just enough to hold it in place. Then go hit it one more time while pressing from the bottom. Yeah, they're pretty on there. Okay, so checking these, I sort of hit the iron on either side of the pin just to sort of distribute the thing. You want to get that nice little sort of cone shape to the pin as it's coming up. You don't want a big blob. You just want a nice little sort of little mountain of solder there. Let's clean up this board a little bit, and then we'll do the other side. So that's just isopropyl alcohol on a Kim wipe, little lint-free or sort of lint-free-ish wiping thing, sort of laboratory thing, and kind of it'll get torn up when you go over the little pads and stuff. Don't sweat it too much. Doesn't have to look perfect. Give it another couple of wipes if you want to get rid of some of the streaking. You don't need to get rid of that flux. It's fine if it stays there. And then you can also, if you do get a little lint in there, I've got some old toothbrushes, and you can kind of give a little scrub on those pins just to get any sort of loose lint or any stuff that's stuck on there. Use a paper towel on a pinch. That stuff just sort of builds up after a bit. Can use a Q-tip as well. Sometimes that's nice for going between the little spots and stuff. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but let's give it another quick wipe here. All right, a little bit better. So we've got things are assembled on the bottom. Great. We've got to put things on the top. We're going to do the switches first to make this a little bit easier. So grab the bag that has the switches, and if you've got encoder caps in there, set those aside, and switch caps, key caps go over there, and some standoffs. So don't need those right now, but we want switches, 1, 2, 3. And then if you've got chocks, I suggest using these little spacers that I include to raise the height of the key up a little bit. So I'll show you that. So you've got the bottom of the thing here, and these just sort of match up. You can kind of tell which way they go by what direction the pins go, but the printing goes towards the key switch, and just kind of will not snap on there, but it will snug. Kind of hard to see with the black on black here. That should end up kind of snug there, and don't have to do anything more. Just kind of do that for all three, and then we're going to set it into the board. The little hole for the LED and the hole for the LED on the switch line up, so it's pretty easy to see where those go. Will it go? I don't know if it'll go the other way. Yeah, it only seems like it should go one direction, so that's cool. So that's on there. These are going to go in switch positions right here and here. And you can do these all at once, maybe, or you can do them one at a time. So the trick here is you're going to set them so the pins are in the right position, and you kind of want to flip this over to do these together. So you can hold them with fingers and try to get it to sort of stick like this, but they'll fall out probably when you do that. Maybe yeah, maybe no. Now, if you're using these chalk spacers, you'll notice that these pins only stick up, it's kind of hard to see here at a distance, but they only barely come through the board. So the trick with these is going to be you want to get the sort of tip of your soldering iron into the hole a little bit, and this is where we want to just do a little bit first. So get, I would say, see if you can press down with a finger or hold this with something to sort of get those in position. Get a little bit of solder in there, press down. That didn't work. Let's try again. Hey, it's not working at all. Get some solder in. Hey, there we go. So I got a little bit of solder in there while I'm pressing down. Don't worry about positioning or anything just yet. I want to do that with these other ones. And like you may need to go a little more pointed downwards than sideways to get the positioning right. Okay, so I've got one pin sort of snugged in there. You can see they're pretty flatly aligned, but if you want to get crazy here, again, this is sort of a two-handed operation. Press the key switch flat all the way in with one hand, with one thumb, with your forefinger on the other side to sort of give it a little pinching pressure, and then you're going to resolder that joint you just did, just to see if you can get it nice and tight in there. Let it go. Keep pressing that together. And did that help? Maybe a little bit. It was already kind of flat, but this will just sort of assure that your keys are nice and snug. Keep holding on to that when you release the soldering iron for 3-4 seconds to make sure it doesn't sort of jump out while the solder is still molten. Again, we're just going to pinch a little bit. Sometimes you'll do this and you're like, oh wow, that was really not in there. It'll sort of snap into place when you solder it. That's kind of what you're looking for. Alright, so that one's done. Let's do the other pin, then we're going to sort of resolder the first tack one more time. So let's get that iron in there, like that. So I've got a fine point iron, so it's a little easier for me to get into that hole a little bit. If you've got sort of a standard tip iron, it may be a little tougher to sort of get it inserted there, but give it your best shot. If that solder's not sticking to the pad or the hole, just clean off your iron and sort of keep trying at it to get it to sort of flows into the space you're trying to work on here. Alright, we're going to reflow this a little bit, do a little more solder. Good. Actually, looks good. Okay, switches on. Easy, right? Okay, encoders. Trick with these. You're gonna want to pinch the lugs together just a tiny bit with your fingers, just to get them to be a little less snug when you pop them in. You might need to do that with a pair of pliers, but you can kind of see this one's not really that much. I didn't do enough. Is that better? There you go. And those should be really fairly snug when you put them in. Use a pair of needle nose pliers or something. Don't bend them too much. Alright, those are snapped in. We're going to hold that up again. Here's where helping hands or something sort of, use my solder pump here to tuck underneath just to hold stuff in place. Again, my program of tack one pin, make sure it's in the right place before soldering everything. So I'm going to hit the middle pin on the encoder portion here. Watch out for the other components. Things are starting to get a little crowded now when you're working in here with the jacks and stuff. I don't need to move too much. I think I can get that one. I'm going to rotate that around in a minute. But so once again, check that it's nice and flat. Maybe resolder the tacked pin, hold it in place, check it to make sure it's not wobbly, all that kind of good stuff before you commit to all the pins. Looks okay for me. And these rings are kind of small for the encoder, so it really does help to get the iron a little bit sideways to get both the ring and the pin to be heated up. These encoders, you don't want to lean on the heat on the pins for too long. You got to be kind of quick. Don't worry about that too much, but you don't want to lean on it for like 10 seconds and have it sort of screw up the encoder action. I think the lubrication on the inside gets a little weird if it gets too hot. It's not a good position. Let's try this. Here we go. Better. I'm often rotating things around to make sure that everything looks nice. And it's like, oh, that other side of the pin maybe needs a little bit more solder. Maybe not. Who knows? But why not give it a little extra? Cool. Everyone asks, do I solder the lugs, the little holders for the encoders? And I say yes, because it'll help you from them wiggling or coming loose. You don't need to fill up that entire hole with solder, but if you can kind of get the edge of this thing and just give it a little hit on both sides, that's great. And you can fill up that hole there with solder if you want to, but don't go crazy. If for some reason you got to replace these, it'll be so much easier to replace them and suck that solder away if there's not a ton in there. This one over here by the MIDI jack is a little tricky to get to. If you're worried about it, don't worry about soldering it. You can just skip it. It's a little bit. That's all you need. I guess? Sure, why not? Here. I guess the last little trick I can say here is on these lugs, get your solder against the big fat part of the lug and the pad underneath it. And just a little bit of solder there. It's going to flow into the joint where they connect, and that should do it. So that's kind of it, right? You got your encoders on, you got your switches on, you got the jacks, you got a PI header, and then we've got hardware and some other stuff, and a display over there. But I got the assembly part of the display in another video, so I'm pretty sure that's what we got to deal with for this one. I guess you got questions. It's the YouTube thing would be to say leave a question or comment, and in the bottom down there. Does that what people point? Is that the thing? I'm going to clean up the board here as we fade out, but that's kind of that. Thanks for watching.